In the previous step, we learned how we can grab an object with controller. In this clip, we want to learn how we can use hand tracking and grabbing an object by our hands. Alright, in the previous step, we learned how to grab an object by controller. In this step, we want to learn how we can use hand tracking of Oculus Quest and grab an object by our hand. Initially, we have to come to the VR camera rig tracking space, for example, right hand. Okay, in here, and disable the Oculus Touch for Quest controller. And enable the mesh of right hand. For button sync, I want to disable the room and UGB and decrease the size of gizmos. Perfect. Now we can see the hand mesh of right hand. Also, we can do the same for left hand. Disable the controller and enable the left hand's mesh. Perfect. Okay, the next step is we have to add some colliders for grabbing. The best solution for grabbing an object is we have to use the same method for controller. For example, it is the collider of hand. However, we can decrease it with something like, for example, put it this way and like this way. Perfect. If we enable the controller, it is not big problem for that, and not too much. Okay, then we will say, okay, by this collider it is grabbable, ready to grab. It's time to send an order to the object for grabbing an object. In the controller, we said once we press button A of right controller, try to grab it. And once we click it, the button A again, try to release it. But in the hand tracking, we don't have any buttons. What we can do? The solution is we have to use our fingers. For example, it is thumb, index, middle, ring, and small. So we can say once we hit the thumb finger and index finger together, it means it is action for click, or we call it grab. Okay, we have to find access to the bones and skeleton of this mesh. We have to come here, Booleanized. In here, as you can see, we have index, middle, pinky, the small one, ring, and thumb. And we can go inside of the thumb, and it is for null, exactly in here. Perfect. We will say, oh, we have to wait for saving. I put in here. We will say, let's to add a sphere to here. Okay, in fact, it is the collider of thumb. We say thumb collider. Perfect. And set the sphere collider of thumb collider as a trigger. Perfect. We have to do exactly the same method for index finger as well. So we will find the index, BR index in here, and now we'll click a new sphere in here and decrease the size of it, something like this, and the position can be here. Perfect. And we will write index collider. Perfect. But the index collider must be collider, not to be as a trigger, and it has to it need to has physics, rigid body, but is kinematic, not only gravity. Perfect. The method is here. For now, forget the mesh. Only concentrate on these two spheres. Once the sphere index hit and enter to the trigger of thumb, it means it is grab. And once it is out of the this sphere is out of this trigger, so it is release. Okay, now we have to create a C# script in here, and we will say thumb finger. Okay. Let's go to the inside of the thumb again. And add this thumb collider, this thumb finger. Perfect. Let's open the script and go to the Visual Studio. This is script, okay, in here. We don't need these parts. Now we will say public boolean I don't know, touched, again false. Perfect. And we will say void on trigger int. Right. If order.transform.name equal the name of that collider for index. So exactly the name, copy in here and paste in here. We will say once other.transform.name equal index collider equal touched true, and exactly the same method for released, but change to the exit and change it to false. Perfect. Now our thumb can understand the index finger hit the thumb finger, but we have to say this action to the grab object. How we can do this? If you remember, once we hit that object trigger by our right hand, the collider of it has been entered to the trigger. So we will add this other game object to equal entered object. So we have access to the enter object and also the components of enter object. But we can do something better. In the OVR camera rig, we can save all actions of fingers. So we will create a C# script, and we will say finger actions. Perfect. Okay, in here we have finger actions. The only things we have to do is we will say public boolean grab equal false. Okay, and in the thumb finger we will have access to this component by this method, finger actions. Okay, then finger actions dot grab equal true. The same method for here as well. However, we don't need to have this touched for now, but maybe in the future we will have access to this touched and do some things with it, so we will keep it. Okay, and save it in here. In the grab we will have this action to these finger actions. We will have access to the finger actions, and we will say in the grab system this method can be copied from here and finger actions from here dot grab equal true, and equal false. Perfect. Now our object will say, okay, right hand enter to my trigger, and once I finger actions grab equal true in every frame, in fact it is equal by pressing button 1 or button A or space. Only things we have to do in here is so in the thumb collider we need to add finger actions to it, but before that we have to add finger actions to the OVR camera rig. Oh, sorry, finger action. Okay, and thumb collider finger actions to this one, and also for grab object finger action to this one as well. Okay, it's time to test in the editor. If everything is fine, we can test it in our headset as well. All right. First, I have to enter the right hand into the collider, into the trigger of grab object, sorry. Okay. Grab object has been touched by right hand. Okay. Now we have to hit the thumb collider by index collider to simulate the click or grab action by our fingers. With this method we can test it in our editor and see what will happen. Oh my god. Perfect. Right hand, and it is grab. Our method works well. Look at this. Perfect. And once I release my index finger from thumb, it has been released. Grab object in here. So once I move my hand, it has been released. It works well. Now it's time to export an APK from our scene and test it in real condition by real hand tracking. But before that, we have to check some settings from our OVR camera rig. For example, the first one is in here in the OVR manager. As you can see, the hand tracking support is only controllers. So we have to change it to controllers and hands. If our application doesn't have any controller and it has only hand tracking, we can change it to hands only. But because we have both of them, I propose to change it to controllers and hands. And also, we can change the hand tracking frequency from low to high for better tracking the hands. Perfect. Everything is fine. Let's export an APK and test it in real condition.
Okay, we are in our VR scene, and this is my hands. And these are the collider. This one is collider thumb, and this one is collider index. Perfect. And it is our grabbable object. I hit it, and I grab. And released. Perfect. And grabbed. And released. Maybe the collider of grabbable object is small, so I cannot grab something like this, or even the collider of my right hand is not in the good position. It's better to be in here, not here. But anyway, our process is perfect. So we can make any actions we want with tracking. For example, we can put middle collider, ring collider, and PQ collider for doing this, and this one, or even this one, or any action we want. For example, something like this for left hand as well. It is right thumb, left thumb, right index, left index. And for example, index to index, do something strange. And it is for grabbing. Perfect. Let's go to the next step.